The truth is that it doesn't need to happen to you in order for you to understand and have empathy for the process of someone else's lifelong healing. Why is it that someone can be fine 1 minute and not the next? Why, after 31 years, I'm not ever going to get over it? Why, after all these years, I'm still afraid to sleep in the dark? I certainly don't have all the answers, and that's because it's an ongoing process that I live with every day, and I have now for over half of my life. It's true that once you are a survivor, you are always a survivor. Now here's my survivor story. That day was like any other day for us. It was October 28th, 1987. I had arrived home from work a little later than usual, and I was super tired. On that night, I was extremely grateful that both of my boys were already asleep when I arrived home. My husband worked the late shift as an officer for the Indianapolis Police Department, so he was gone for the whole entire night. After the babysitter left, I was ready for bed myself. I had only been asleep for a couple hours when I woke up unexpectedly because I could not breathe. At first I thought I was having a nightmare, and so I was struggling to wake up, but it wasn't a dream. That's when I realized that there was a stranger choking me in my bed, and that I really couldn't breathe. This was really happening to me, and I honestly thought that night I was going to die. My first thoughts were for my two boys. They were ages 5 and 1, and my then unborn child. I was 22 weeks pregnant. There was only a thin wall between their peaceful slumber and my attacker. Thankfully, I was able to break free from him and lock myself in the ensuite bathroom. After he ran out of the house, I was able to call 911, and even though I was battered and bruised, my children were not hurt, and I thank God every day for that. I was taken to the hospital where they tended to my injuries and did a rape kit. After answering hundreds of questions, as I was leaving the hospital, I walked past a mirror, and I will never forget that image of my unrecognizable face. I could only see out of one of my eyes because the other one was swollen shut. All I wanted to do was to hold my children, to hug my babies. But how could I let them see me like this? I'm grateful that they were young enough that they really didn't understand what was happening. After hours and hours of interviewing with police, we never went back to that house again. Truthfully, there was a lot of attention to my case at first, and I looked at hundreds of mugshots, but I never saw the right face, and I wanted to so much. As life went on, we had a healthy baby boy, and when I saw him for the first time, it was impossible for me to really believe that there wasn't anything wrong with him. The doctors all said he was healthy, but I didn't believe them. After all, I felt like my soul had been murdered, so how could that not have affected him? I went through lots of counseling and threw myself into raising my young family. We ended up moving to another state, but all of the fears that I had, well, they followed me wherever I went. Sadly, I still couldn't sleep in the dark, and I slept in my clothes every single night. Fear was paralyzing me, and I couldn't stop it. I really didn't know how. A few years later, my marriage ended in divorce, and I started drinking alcohol to numb the pain. Substance abuse and PTSD are very common in a survivor's life. 81% of women and 35% of men report short-term or long-term PTSD. You may even know someone that's been down this road. For me, accepting that I would never be the same person that I was before that night has been extremely difficult. Finding myself again and forgiveness has been a big part of my healing journey. 6 years ago, I became a sexual assault advocate to not only help others, but I want to change the rape culture in my own lifetime. My rapist was never apprehended, and my rape kit has long been destroyed. You know, I always thought that I needed an apology from my rapist, when really I just needed one from my husband. And I'll explain, because 7 years ago, I did receive an apology from him. And it went kind of like this. As a man, I should have protected you. As an officer and a husband, I should have protected you. Now, hearing those words changed my life. It was never his fault. However, trauma to the brain works in mysterious ways that a lot of you out there already know that. So for me, hearing him say, I'm sorry, actually was better, because I don't think I would have believed my rapist if he would have, to my face, said he was sorry, even though I only saw him that one instance and never saw him again. Now, here is some good news. I rarely sleep in my clothes anymore, and I'll be 15 years sober in June. Now, at the beginning of this year, I decided that I was going to conquer sleeping in the dark while I'm at home, meaning no nightlight. And I am proud to say that I have been successful for over 3 months now. I took back my power by taking back my own night. When people ask me how I get through it, I have to say that you kind of split yourself into two people. The person that it happened to, and the one that makes it through the day. And you keep growing up. You keep getting older, and your life gets bigger, and that stuff gets smaller, and it's true. The Dalai Lama once said, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Pretty sure we all have done that. You can always make a difference, so check in on your friends and family, because sometimes it is the little things that mean so much. I think it's very important for events like Take Back the Night to exist so we can normalize the conversation about sexual violence. Everyone in this room either knows of someone or you yourself are a survivor. According to the Joyful Heart Foundation, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 3 men, or 1 in 6 men, are survivors of sexual violence. I get kind of angry at this part, but I'm going to make it through without saying too much. An American is sexually assaulted every 98 seconds. I don't know if everybody understands that, but every 98 seconds, someone here in the United States is sexually assaulted. And every 9 minutes, that American is a child. So if the same medical diagnosis was reported every 98 seconds, an emergency or an epidemic would be declared, right? So why not for sexual violence? I don't know. I don't have the answers. We know that there's strength in numbers, though, so please don't ever feel like you're alone, because you're not. And maybe for you, you're not ready, or you don't feel comfortable saying the words out loud yet, and that's okay too. Just know that we're here, that your community is here for you, and give yourself permission to get better. Look, it takes hard work every single day, but you can do it. You really do matter. We all matter. I would like to give a special thanks to Ivy Tech and Steve Bush for allowing Kathy Clark and I to be a part of your Take Back the Night tonight. And I will leave you with this tonight. If you don't heal what hurt you, then you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. Thank you.